Hey y'all, welcome to day 2. This is Tuesday of our virtual camp for Washington, and we're so glad you're with us again. I'm Michelle Eaton.
And I'm Liam Adams.
So today I want to know, Liam, what is your favorite camp meal?
Ooh, we have some really good cooks in the kitchen. There's a lot of good meals. Favorite camp meal? I'm probably going to have to go with chocolate chip pancakes and bacon.
I wouldn't have expected you going with breakfast, but
yeah, breakfast, because it really gets you going in the morning. I'm not a big breakfast guy any other time of the year, but at camp I love the pancakes and the bacon. It's so good.
Yes. Let's see. I think my favorite is probably the chicken fingers and French fries.
Ooh, yeah, that's
because they always have some really good dipping sauces and stuff like that. So it's very exciting. Yeah. So campers, think about it. What's your favorite camp meal? Maybe you can make a plan to prep a similar meal with your family today. That would be lots of fun. Maybe not with all the sauces. Or maybe you could do chocolate chip pancakes with all the chicken tender dipping sauces.
Ooh, that would be good.
That sounds like a good food competition.
Pancakes with ranch and honey mustard and some tangy sauce.
Buffalo sauce, yeah, that sounds delish. Bacon dipped in honey mustard or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. So, okay, tonight is a live Zoom game night. You don't want to miss it. Liam will be hosting our group game on Zoom at 7 o'clock. So we hope to see you there. Have a good day, y'all. Today we're going to continue working through Daniel. And if you remember yesterday, we went through Daniel 1 and we learned about Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego being brought to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. And we learned that they, in the middle of, being held captive and being told how to live their lives, they chose to be obedient to the way that God had taught them to live and had asked them to do certain things. And so they lived a very different way than the other men in the kingdom and were stronger and more well-liked than all of the other men in the kingdom that were enslaved by the king as well. And at the end of that chapter, we learned that God gave them the ability to, specifically Daniel, to interpret dreams. And so we're going to continue with Daniel 2 to learn what happened next.
"2 years after rising to the throne of Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar had a terrible dream. This dream frightened him so much that he couldn't sleep. King Nebuchadnezzar, in anguish and desperate to learn what the dream meant, called in all the wise men known to him to see if any of them could interpret his dream. The wise men came before King Nebuchadnezzar and asked him to tell them about his dream. But the king refused. King Nebuchadnezzar demanded that the wise men first tell him what he dreamed, and then what the dream meant. The king declared, "If you can do this, I will give you great rewards. If not, I will have you put to death." In disbelief of the king's request, the wise men said, "King Nebuchadnezzar, what you ask is impossible. No one can do what you ask. Only a god could tell you your dream." This made King Nebuchadnezzar so angry that he ordered that all his wise men be put to death, including Daniel and his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When the king's chief soldier, Arioch, came to capture Daniel, he asked Arioch what was going on. Arioch explained the situation, and Daniel went to King Nebuchadnezzar to ask for time to interpret the dream. The king agreed, and Daniel hurried back to see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego so that they could pray for God's help. That night, God revealed to Daniel the king's dream and its meaning. The next morning, Daniel went to Arioch and said, "Don't execute the wise men of Babylon. I will interpret the king's dream." When Arioch brought Daniel before King Nebuchadnezzar, the troubled, tired king asked Daniel, "Can you tell me what I saw in my dream?" Daniel replied, "No one could tell you this, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He showed me your dream and what it means." Daniel told the king, "God showed you the future through your dream. In your dream, you saw a statue with a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet of iron mixed with clay. Then a rock smashed the statue. The rock became a mountain that filled the whole earth. You, king, are the head of gold, and every other part of the statue are the kingdoms that will come after you. The rock represents a kingdom that God will establish that will last forever." King Nebuchadnezzar bowed before Daniel and showed him great honor for all that God had spoken through him. The king said, "Surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings, the one who can reveal the greatest of mysteries." For his service, King Nebuchadnezzar promoted Daniel to a high position and placed him in charge of all the wise men. At Daniel's request, the king also promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to rule over all the provinces of Babylon.
So King Nebuchadnezzar has a troubling dream that's keeping him up all night, and he assembles all of the wise men to interpret his dream. And not only did he want them to interpret his dream, but he wanted them to actually tell him what his dream was and then tell him what it meant. So not only did they have to have wisdom to understand what the dream meant, but they basically had to be able to kind of read inside his brain to know what that dream was. And the wise men were like, "This is impossible, and there's no one that can do that but God." So Nebuchadnezzar, who obviously was used to having his way, decided to put all the wise men to death, including Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But Daniel was able to go to the king, and he told him, "Look, give me some time, but I will see if I can interpret your dream for you." And he immediately went home. And the four men, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel, immediately started praying. And Daniel was given a dream in the night, which was the dream that he had given the king, and was given the interpretation. And he went back to the king, and he was able to basically barter with the king. He said, "King, I'll tell you what it means, but please don't kill these wise men. Let's spare them." So Daniel told the king what his dream meant, which he was talking about how basically he was a powerful king, and that each king after him, kind of got lesser and lesser in importance or in power, and that a rock would be thrown, and that rock would be a kingdom that would be set up that would last forever. That was a foreshadowing or basically telling ahead of Jesus coming and the kingdom that he would establish here on earth. And so he tells him what the dream means, and because of Daniel and his willingness to interpret, he not only kept himself and his three friends safe, but he also spared the lives of all the wise men. And then he was raised to a position of leadership by King Nebuchadnezzar, as well as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So in the face of a really scary time, when Daniel could have easily just shrunk back and been scared to approach the king, he went to the king boldly, and he told the king that he could likely interpret his dream. And because he trusted God, he immediately went to God in prayer, and God gave him the interpretation. And because of Daniel's willingness to be bold, to pray and seek God, he saved he and his friends' lives, but the lives of all the wise men. And God rewarded that through him being raised into a position of leadership and higher in the government of King Nebuchadnezzar. So we will continue our study of Daniel tomorrow.